Death sentences are never a pleasant sight, but over the years, we have seen convicted criminals who are sentenced to death take their execution as an opportunity to ask for forgiveness or say their last words. However, some remain unshaken, even in the face of death. Today, we'll look at the most disturbing last words of convicted criminals, from those asking for forgiveness and telling their families they love them, to those simply enjoying their little time left. George Apple. Not much is known about Apple's actual murder. However, reports show that in December 1927, during a robbery in a restaurant, Apple shot and killed Police Lieutenant Charles J. Kemmer. For his actions, Apple was convicted of first-degree murder and handed the death penalty. Initially, Apple denied shooting the policeman, claiming that he was innocent. However, Apple later admitted to the crime a few weeks before his execution. In 1928, he was sent to the electric chair, and he is known for his infamous last words, which were, "Well, gentlemen, you're about to see a baked apple." James Donald French. Born in 1936 in Illinois, James was only 22 years when he was sentenced to life imprisonment for killing Frank Boone, a driver who was kind enough to pick him up while he was hitchhiking. James asked for the death penalty during his trial, but the jury refused and gave him a life sentence. Disappointed by the ruling, James wrote several letters to the governor requesting a new trial to achieve his aim of being given the death penalty. Nevertheless, his letters were either ignored or left unanswered. In October 1961, James killed Shelton, his prison inmate. The two had not been getting along, and James had grown tired of life in prison. James revealed that he killed Shelton not just because Shelton was stupid, but because he wanted the state of Oklahoma to give him the death penalty. He made a voluntary confession, fully aware of his crime's punishment. The judge approved his request for the death penalty. Still, third-party attorneys working on his case tried to save his life. They appealed the court's decision, and they got James 3 trials. Still, in each trial, James voluntarily maintained his stance that he killed Shelton because he wanted the death penalty. Finally, he wrote to the Oklahoma Court of Appeal requesting that no trial of his case be honored. The court did as he requested. Before he was executed, psychiatric tests revealed that James possessed more than average intelligence and a good educational background, and even authored a book. Their tests also showed James was suicidal, but could not carry out the act himself. On the 10th of August 1966, James finally got what he wanted: death. But not before dropping one of the most popular last words. How is this for a newspaper headline? French fries. Robert Alton Harris. Robert was a kidnapper, burglar, and murderer. He was born on the 15th of January 1953 in North Carolina, United States. He suffered abuse while growing up and was placed in juvenile detention twice for car theft before he turned 15. At 22, Robert, in collaboration with his brother, hijacked a car occupied by 2 teenage boys, Michael Baker and John Majewski. They ordered the boys to drive to a remote area, then executed them. Robert and his brother Daniel then took the car, robbed a bank, and used the car as a getaway vehicle. Luckily, they were apprehended in no time and charged with kidnapping, vehicle theft, and robbery. Robert was convicted on 2 counts of kidnapping and 2 counts of murder in the first degree and sentenced to death. In contrast, his brother was convicted of kidnapping and sentenced to 6 years in prison. Following judicial processes, Robert's execution was postponed 3 times. However, on the 21st of April 1992, he was sent into the gas chamber at San Quentin State Prison. Robert's final words were, "You can be a king or a little street sweeper, but everybody dances with the Reaper." Jeffrey David Matthews. Jeffrey and his accomplice Tracy Dyer went into the house of Jeffrey's great-uncle Otis Short, who was 77 years old. Jeffrey shot his great-uncle in the head at point-blank range with a .45 caliber pistol, while his accomplice slit the wife's throat, and they made away with a pistol and $500 cash in Short's truck. Fortunately, Short's wife, Minnie Short, survived the assault. Following investigations by the police, Jeffrey and Dyer were arrested, tried, and sentenced. Despite Jeffrey's claims of innocence that resulted in several postponements of his execution to ascertain the claims, he was finally executed on the 11th of January 2011. His last words were, "I think that the governor's phone is broken. He hadn't called yet." Robert Charles Towery. Mark Jones was a Paradise Valley philanthropist before Towery and his accomplices Randy Baker murdered him. Towery has been Jones's mechanic, and Jones has been kind to him, loaning him some money and allowing him and Baker inside his house. Once inside the house, Towery put a gun on Jones while his accomplice handcuffed him. Together they took away valuables from Jones's house and loaded them into Jones's vehicle. Towery then took Jones to the bedroom and injected him with battery acid, informing him that it was an injection that would help him sleep. Trusting Towery, Jones did not protest. However, after Towery had injected Jones with the battery acid, he proceeded to strangle Jones to death. He then drove away with the valuables they packed, offloaded them in their prospective homes, and discarded the car. Before long, John's body and the car were discovered by the police. Following a tip-off, the police arrested Towery and recovered Jones's properties from his and Baker's houses. Towery was charged with murder in the first degree and sentenced to death. In contrast, Baker was charged with second-degree murder and served only 10 years in prison in exchange for his testimony. While on death row, Towery was reported to have a change of heart and was very sorry for his crimes. His last words amidst sobs and apologies to the victim's family before he was executed on the 8th of March 2012 were, "I love my family. Potato, potato, potato." His reference to potatoes was a secret message to his nephew, who witnessed the execution and referred to the sound a Harley-Davidson motorcycle makes while the engine is idle. Richard Aaron Cobb. Richard Aaron, born on the 2nd of April 1984, was only 18 when he and his accomplice, Bunka Adams, burglarized a convenience store in Rusk, Texas. After the robbery, they forced the two employees and Kenneth Vandeveer, the only customer at the store, inside a car in the parking lot and drove to a secluded area where they sexually assaulted one of the employees, knelt the victims down, shot them execution style, and fled. Sadly, Vandeveer died as a result, but the two employees survived, and their testimony helped in convicting and sentencing Adams and his accomplice. On the 23rd of January 2004, Richard was sentenced to death and executed by lethal injection on April 25, 2013. His last words were, "Life is death, and death is life. I hope that someday this absurdity that humanity has come to will come to an end." Minutes later, the drug began coursing through his veins. Richard's head snapped off the gurney, and he said, "Wow, this is great. Thank you, Warden." Peter Curtin, nicknamed the Dusseldorf Monster and the Vampire of Dusseldorf, was a German serial killer who terrorized the city of Dusseldorf in 1929. Peter was born into a low-income family in Germany and was the oldest of 13 children. He grew up with a vicious father who would regularly beat Peter and his siblings whenever he was drunk. Pete's mother wasn't exempted from these beatings. Peter's father was jailed for more than a year in 1897 for raping his eldest daughter, who was only 13. As the eldest son, Peter bore the brunt of his father's beatings, which affected his academic performance and several areas of his life. He stated he committed his first murder at age 9 when he drowned 2 classmates. Throughout his youth, Peter was arrested and jailed for various crimes, ranging from threatening behavior, arson, theft, attempted robbery, breaking and entering, and burglary. Peter's first definitive murder was on the 25th of May, 1913, when he killed Christine Klein, a 9-year-old, during a burglary. He committed more than 65 crimes, including 9 murders and 31 attempted murders. Peter readily confessed to his crimes and admitted that seeing the blood of his victims drives him to orgasm. He often drank the blood of his victims, earning him the nickname, the Vampire of Dusseldorf. Peter was charged with 9 counts of murder and 7 counts of attempted murder. His trial lasted for 10 days, and in the end, he was sentenced to death. Peter neither showed remorse for his crimes nor appealed the judgment. On July 2, 1931, Peter was beheaded via guillotine. His last words as he turned to the psychiatrist were, "Tell me, after my head is chopped off, will I still be able to hear, at least for a moment, the sound of my own blood gushing from the stump of my neck? That would be the pleasure to end all pleasures." What do you make of these last words? Which one do you find most intriguing? Let's know what you think in the comments section.